All right, I'm back with some hazelnut coffee, and I'm here to share with you all my experience with something that is going on currently in my life and you might happen to encounter in your academic journey as well. Today we are going to be talking about a bachelor's thesis in sociology. What does that mean? What does it entail? What's my experience with it? And what can I share with you that will hopefully be helpful if you are currently finishing a bachelor's thesis? I'm not sure if this will relate in other fields, but specifically in sociology. You might have clicked on this video because you already have some semblance of what I'm going to talk about, but you also may have no idea what I'm talking about. So what exactly is a thesis? So usually at the end of an academic program in higher education, so bachelor's, master's, PhD, all the like, you will usually spend some time towards the end or throughout that program compiling what is called a thesis that you will turn in to be graded and you will use to fulfill your requirements to graduate in whatever program that you're in. Obviously, this is going to be different from a master's and PhD thesis. I do not have experience with that yet. I'm still in my undergrad, still getting that bachelor's, so I'm going to talk specifically, obviously, about undergrad and bachelor's thesis. Now, this is not a requirement of every undergrad or university. From my understanding, I am a transfer student, so I went to another university before this one, and I believe at that college I did not have to finish a thesis. Not actually sure. I may have. Who knows? But I'm pretty certain that some schools don't do thesis, but they could do like a project or a seminar or an internship as one of the last requirements in your senior year. Now, at my college, which is Scripps College, one of the Claremont colleges, you do have to finish a thesis, no matter your major, and submit it to graduate. Now, let's get into what the specifics of a thesis in sociology is. Now, usually a thesis is like a very long paper or research project, just a really long piece of writing that you have finished and done over the course of your senior year of graduating in undergrad. And it usually is in the methods of whatever field that you're in. So if you're in psychology, if you're in government, if you're in law, if you're in economics, etc., then you will complete a thesis depending on that major's requirements or the way that they set it up. So I cannot speak to other disciplines for this video. I'm specifically going to be speaking to sociology and what my experience is. For a sociology thesis, what's important to distinguish first is if you are going to be conducting a quantitative or qualitative research project. Now, I'm personally conducting a qualitative research project, and that's what I'm going to be talking about in this video. But others can fulfill a quantitative research method, which usually involves surveys and analyzing the data of that survey or surveys. And it's more like related to statistics and answering questions via that like data. Again, I'm not super familiar with it. I took one quantitative research methods class, but I've never conducted a research project in quantitative methods because I'm just personally not interested in it. So I'm going to stop blabbering about something that I don't really know. Talk to you about a qualitative research method. Now, if you are clicking on this video because you are completing your bachelor's thesis in sociology, One of the first and foremost things that you need to do, unlike myself, I was not early about this, make sure that you are submitting your application to your institution's IRB ahead of time. What is IRB? IRB is the Institutional Review Board at your college. Every college has one, and it's basically the place that you go to make sure that you are conducting your research in an ethical way and that is in line with the standards that like pretty much every university has agreed to conduct research in an ethical manner. If you're conducting a qualitative research method, that means that you are probably going to be doing interviews, ethnography, or field reporting, and maybe like data analysis or like archive analysis, something of the sort. And basically the IRB makes sure that you're conducting this research in a way that doesn't harm anyone or, produce like really, really negative effects on your research participants or the community that you are researching about. So, like I said, I am doing a qualitative research method for my research, for my thesis, which means that personally I am going to be doing interviews, and I'm not going to be doing field reporting or an ethnography, so I can't really speak to that. I have some experience with that, but not a lot. So if you're looking for advice on that, I would definitely look somewhere else because also not the type of research that I'm personally interested in. The main part of my thesis is interviews. So when I'm submitted for IRB approval, I created an interview guide. And so that's something that you're going to have to do if you're doing qualitative research methods and you're going to be interviewing participants, is you basically want to create a set of questions that you're going to ask your participants to answer, and that's related to your thesis. So obviously, before all of this, sorry, I'm kind of jumping ahead. Let me jump back a little bit. You have to have a research question in mind. So you want to ask yourself, what am I personally interested in about learning more information about that I feel like there isn't already enough information about? The important thing about conducting a research project or a thesis is that it has to have a research question that's specific and fills in a gap in research. So you might have a research question that has already been answered, and then it would kind of be like, what is the point of answering or researching about that if it's already been answered? So yeah, one of the unique things that sets your research apart is that it is going to be answering and filling in a gap that other research has not addressed. So the first thing that you want to do is create an abstract. And that is kind of like, what is your research question? Why is this important? / why should people care? And why, how is it different from all the literature that already exists? So you're going to create your abstract. So then that way, you're kind of narrowing down your research topic. And then you're going to do an IRB application, and that's going to ask you to fill in a lot more questions. So you're going to get specific, like what group of people fulfill the requirements and participants for your research. So who are you researching about? And then there's a lot more other questions in there. And like I said, eventually you're going to create an interview guide. And it will be helpful to do your interview guide in the beginning and also reviewing it and editing it after you've read a lot of literature. That has to do with your topic. I'm going to get into the specifics about my research and my thesis so that you can get an idea. And also, the reason why I'm making this video is because I asked on Twitter what kind of video you would like to see from me next, and overwhelmingly people wanted to hear about my thesis project. If you're new to this channel, hello, my name is Carolann, by the way. Thanks for checking out my videos. If you don't know, so if you're new, I am Native, I am Indigenous, I'm California Indian, specifically Hamiintamc. I have a huge passion for Indigenous languages in general, and of course my native language. So I've been learning my native language in my adulthood for some time now, and I didn't become interested or passionate about this until I entered college and I was a young adult and realized that I had a responsibility to learn my language. So that being said, I spent some time last summer with a research fellowship working on research about Indigenous languages, specifically California Indian languages. And I came to the conclusion that I'm so passionate about this that I wanted to make it my thesis project. And so my research is essentially exploring the experiences of Indigenous college students who are learning their Indigenous language or languages. So I'm kind of looking at research participants that are like me and who are enrolled in university and have some experience learning or speaking their language. One of the other questions that I have is like, what kind of barriers do Indigenous students face when learning their languages? Do Indigenous students have institutional or community support in learning their Indigenous languages? What is the college experience like of Indigenous students? Do they feel included or excluded from their university? And what are the attitudes and beliefs and belief system of Indigenous youth who are learning their languages? Those are some of the research questions that I have going into my thesis project. So I've done an abstract and we talked about that, created an interview guide, talked about that. Now the next thing that you're going to be working on is your literature review, and that's something that I just recently finished. And so for your literature review, it's kind of overwhelming to think about it like this, but I'm going to keep it real with you. This is how you have to think of it, is you have to think about what is all the existing literature and scholarship that is related to my research topic that is out there, and what do they say about the research that I'm conducting. So for example, one of the things that I'm exploring is what if the attitudes of Indigenous youth in regards to Indigenous languages, right? Hello, Shiloh. She decided to join us. So there are actually some research articles out there where they've captured this exact topic, right? With specifically that I'm thinking of is a research done on Navajo youth, right? One of my things that I want to explore is like, what benefits do Indigenous youth experience from learning their Indigenous language? And a lot of the research that I've discovered and the literature that I've discovered talks about how it improves their relationship with their identity, or how it improves their mental health, or how it improves their connection to their community, right? So in your literature review, this is what you're going to be doing, is basically looking at all of the existing scholarship, seeing what's relevant to my topic, identifying themes within the research that you think is going to show up in your results review. Next, you're going to be working on your methods, and this is going to be after or during conducting interviews, you're kind of going to talk about like, what were your methods, you know? So what did you come across while interviewing? How did you interview? How did you collect your data? Are you using a specific like theoretical framework for your research? So for example, if you're doing something related to race, you might be using critical race theory. If you're doing something related to gender, you might be using feminist theory, right? So in the methods, you could talk about specifically what methods that you're using. So for me, my method is definitely Indigenous epistemologies and Indigenous studies as a framework, trying to center the voices of Indigenous people and using the scholarship to uplift and promote Indigenous traditions and beliefs rather than trying to exploit and fetishize and stuff like that. So that's what you're going to do in your methods section. And then after that is going to come your results. And so you're going to transcribe all of your interviews, which means that you're going to put them from audio into a written copy of what they said. And then you're going to code the interviews. And coding basically means like going through your interviews and identifying themes and quotations that relate to a theme. And this will help you organize and compile them so that you can then write your results section. And then you'll get into your discussion section, which is kind of like, okay, now we know this. What does this mean for research and scholarship going forward? Yeah, so kind of like, those are my results. Here's what my results mean. And this is what they tell us. Another thing that you can add into your research project, which I'm going to do, is a section about positionality. So just kind of framing the research in what your position is. So like, let's say that you're doing research on gender, right? It might be helpful to, indicate if you're cis, trans, gender nonconforming, woman, man, non-binary, etc. Maybe it will be helpful to also include your race or your ethnicity. Maybe it'll be helpful to include your income status, depending on your research topic, what is relevant and what might have informed your research or affected your analysis in some way. And this is really helpful for future readers of your scholarship who are wondering like, okay, what exactly was their position? Where are they coming from? Like, why are they asking these specific questions? Maybe they left out something that, might be due to their bias. Maybe they included something that, is also due to their bias. So it's really helpful for other readers to know where exactly you're coming from in your research. So that's your positionality, and then your discussion, and then finally your conclusion, which is basically a summary of everything that you did in your project. And then this may not make sense to do it at the end, but it actually does. You want to go back and make sure that you do your introduction, because in a lot of ways your introduction is kind of like a summary of what you've done. So then that way people can read the introduction and get a sense of what the research is going to be about. So that is pretty much all of the sub-points and sections that make up a thesis. So I'm currently in the process of conducting my interviews and working on my methods section. So pretty soon after that, I'll be getting into my results and then following suit as I told you. So yeah, that is basically everything that is required of a bachelor's thesis in sociology. Obviously, this is not super comprehensive. I could get more specific with each specific section. And maybe that would be helpful if you want me to make a video or videos breaking down each section of a thesis or research project. I think that would be kind of helpful so that I could get a lot more specific rather than like I want to keep this video within 20 minutes-ish. So I can't talk about every single section in depth. But that is basically the gist of a bachelor's thesis in sociology and what my thesis is going to be about. To say, I know that y'all really enjoy my YouTube videos that talk about sociology, so I'm happy to be making more videos about it. And let me know in the comments down below what other videos you would like to see from me regarding sociology, because yeah, I just love connecting with other sociology students on this channel. It's really, really fun for me. And if you haven't already, please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it helps us small content creators. And if you want to see more from me, make sure that you subscribe and you tap that notification bell so that you can get alerted when I post a new video. But other than that, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this video, and thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, and I will see you in my next video.